Is your blues playing just a little shaky? Do some of the notes not turn out the way you were hoping that they would? Join me today. I'm going to target the tar out of some blues. So stay tuned. Hello and welcome, friends, to this episode of the Play Guitar Podcast. I'm Lee, and this is the podcast that's determined to make you a better guitar player. No matter if you're just starting out or you've been playing for years, this is the show that will help you become the guitarist that you always wanted to be. And if you are new here, make sure you subscribe to the podcast and check out the description for all of the links from the show. How are you doing today? We did an episode on targeting, chord tone targeting. What is chord tone targeting? Chord tone targeting is the cure. It's the cure for aimless soloing. The problem is that when you decide to learn electric guitar, the first thing you do is you learn some scales. A lot of people get those scale patterns and it's like a light bulb went off. Like, okay, I see how it works. What key am I in? Here's the scale that matches that key. And you go to town, and it's a big leap. Problem is, it doesn't last long. And some people never make it out alive from that time. They stay in the scale to key world. And the scale to key world works pretty good. But your ear's telling you some things. There's some notes you're missing. There's some notes that could be better. And the problem gets magnified when you're learning to play the blues. Well, we learn the blues, even if you're not a blues player, you're a rock player, a country player, bluegrass, whatever it is. The blues is a kind of a common thread between all of these. It's part of the foundation of most of these styles of music. So if you can learn a little bit of blues, you're going to understand the music that you're trying to play a lot better. We all think of the blues as that minor pentatonic sound. Go see any blues band, good blues band play. And there are many, many different styles of blues that they go through. There are many, many different sounds, and you can't get all of those just with the minor pentatonic scale. And even in those songs that do use the minor pentatonic scale as the, that gritty sound that we're used to with blues, you start to hear some players that are getting a little bit extra. They're really hitting the chord progression as it goes through. Your ear might tell you, hey, there's something different there, but unless you really look into it, you're not really sure what the difference is. All you know is, well, that sounds different than mine. So let's talk about what's chord tone targeting. We did this before, but it's aiming for the notes of a chord as it plays. Oh man, now I got to know the notes, all the notes in these chords. Well, it can help. It can help a lot. The basics of all this are to know what your strong notes are and what your weak notes are. That's super simple. Your strong notes are the notes that are in the chord that's playing at the time, not just because it's in a certain key. Whatever chord's playing at the time, those are your strong notes. And what are your weak notes? Well, everything else, right? The other notes in the scale and all the wrong notes, the notes that aren't in the scale. Those are your weak notes as well. And you can use all of them once you get a handle on it. So how do you get there? And what do you do with them when you get there? That's the real question. Practicing your arpeggio notes, seeing where they lay in across a scale pattern. When you see your scale patterns, are the notes in your scale patterns matching the chord that's being played at the time or not? And if you can get a hold of that, then all of a sudden your choices for notes. We've all done that. We've all gone for the big note. Talked about it last week. You go for the big note, you play it, and it wasn't where you thought you were going to land. It didn't do what you thought it was going to do. And so the more you know about this, the more you're going to be able to pick the notes that are perfect at the right time. The blues is our first step. It's our starter house. We can get in there. We can try this stuff out. It's not too complicated. Let's get into these blues changes. What I've told you is you need to know the names of the chords. We're going to pick a key. Let's pick the key of A today. Okay. So in a blues, the most traditional blues that you'll find, it just uses triads, uses regular major chords. So you might have a song that's in the key of A, just A major, and then the next chord you come to is a D major, and then finally an E major. The A chord has A, C sharp, and E. The D chord has D, F sharp, and A, and then the E chord has E, G sharp, and B. Those are the notes in those chords. Super simple stuff. If you just go through an A major scale, you find the root of the chord in that scale, and you go every other note. So that was the A, C sharp, and E. I'm going to go up to the D in the scale, then skip every other note. D, E, F sharp, G, A, right? And then go to the E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, E, G sharp, B. So we got those chord tones right from the scale. Easy stuff. Now the problem is, you're not going to find that in most blues songs. Most blues songs use something called the dominant seventh chord, this sound, right? And this sound is a lot of fun to play over. You can do a lot of stuff with dominant seventh chords. I love playing over dominant seventh chords, but we need to add something to those triads that we did before. So our first triad was A. We had A, C sharp, E. What we're going to do is we're going to go to the root note and go back 2 frets, a whole step behind there, and add that note to this triad. So this is in the key of, in the chord of A, a whole step back is a G. So we had A, C sharp, E, and G, the flat seventh. So it gives a funkier kind of sound. And then we're going to go to the D, okay? We had D, F sharp, and A. Those were the notes in that chord. And if we take a D note and go back 2 frets, that gives us a C. So we're going to add that C to that D arpeggio, to that D chord, to the notes of that D chord. And then for our E chord, we had E, G sharp, and B. Now we're going to go to an E and go down 2 frets. That gives us a D note. E, G sharp, B, D. There's our dominant 7th sound back to A7. So really getting to know the notes of these chords, it takes a little bit of time. It's not that difficult. What about minor blues? There are some really, really, really cool blues minor sounds, super sad sounding chords. We're going to stay in the key of A, but now we're going to make all these minor 7th chords. So in the key of A minor, if we make our chords off of the 1, the 4, and the 5 off of A minor, here's our A natural minor scale, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, right? The same as a C. And we're going to go every other note, A, C, E. That gives us our A minor 7th chord. And then on a D minor 7th, D, skip E, go to F, skip A, skip G, go to A. And for our 5 chord, E minor 7th, we'll skip every other note. We have E, G, and B now. Pretty cool. Not difficult at all to do. Found those notes super simple. Just if I knew the scale and I knew what note to start on, skipping every other note gives me those sounds. Also in minor, we have something that happens very commonly, and it's something that trips a lot of people up. Something in the academy I spend a lot of time dealing with is that people will change the structure of the chords to suit the way they want it to sound, especially in a minor blues. Well, you have these 3 minor 7th chords. A lot of people love the way the sound of the 5 chord is a dominant back to 1. So you'll see that. Hear that? That dominant chord always has a very strong leaning towards going back to the 1 chord. It makes it very strong. So here's A minor, and here's the 5 chord as an E minor 7th. Very nice sounding. A lot of songs have used that, but you also hear this. Here's the dominant. Ah, right? We've heard that a lot too. That makes a problem for us when we solo. When the songwriter changes that chord to a dominant chord, and we're trying to play along with our regular A minor pentatonic scale, something happens. We get a sour sound. It doesn't match very well. It doesn't give us what we want. So what do you have to do? We have to target. We have to make some changes to make sure that we target those sounds. Now that we know all of the notes from these chords that we're going to find in a blues, what's the process? Well, we're going to use pattern 1 as our base camp. The 1 4 1 3 1 3 1 3 1 4 1 4. The scale pattern that we all love. It's easy. You don't have to think about it, right? We have A, C, D, E, G, and A, just over and over again. Now, in the first chord, we'll just do dominant sevenths here. We had A, C sharp, E, and G. That was our first chord. Well, let's see. A, that's in the scale pattern, so we're good. C sharp, not in the scale pattern. We have a C, right? So that's a note that if you want to target and really fit in with the chord, that's a note that you would target. Target means that it's your end result. You're going to work towards that. Of course, you could do it in the beginning too, but it sure sounds nice when you target that. Okay, now let's look at our second chord. Now we have a D7th chord, right? We have D, F sharp, and A, and C. Let's see, in our pattern, our minor pentatonic pattern, we have D. Definitely. We don't have the F sharp. We have the A and the C there. So we could play our regular scale, but we're over that D chord. We're over the 4 chord. We could go back to the F sharp. That's not in our scale pattern, and it will sound like we are perfectly matching the chord. Starting to get some ideas? So over the A chord, target the 3rd. Target the 3rd in the D chord. Even just play those notes. Here's the A chord. Here's the C sharp. Could you hear the chord progression change when I changed to the 3rd of that? There's no chord playing. There's no bass playing. There's no anything. Just one note. We are outlining the harmony as we go. You listen to Brian May, you listen to Neil Schon, any of these players that have really, really melodic styles. They know what the notes in the chords are, and they know how to use them to their advantage. And by learning the blues, doing it easy this way, we can do it in rock music, we can do it in jazz music, all sorts of different stuff. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put on this A blues backing track. I'm going to target the C sharp. That's the 3rd of the A chord. Then when the D 7th chord, I'm going to come in, I'm going to target the 3rd for that. That's the F sharp. And then over the E, I'm going to target the G sharp. Basically what that means is I'm going to play around a little bit and then when the chord changes or before the chord changes, I'm going to make sure to make a big deal about that note right there. There's my 3rd of the A. Now here comes the D. I'm going to go for the F sharp. Did you hear that? How it matched perfectly? There's another F sharp. Ended on the C sharp this time. There's my G sharp for the E7 chord. And my F sharp for the D7 chord. See if you can see when I use it. Here comes a chord change. I actually just used the whole arpeggio in that line. Now that's the major 3rd. That's the C sharp all by itself. With the minor 3rd, sounds pretty. Now I'm going to target the 3rds and the 7ths. There's the 3rd of the A and the flat 7th of the A. Third of the of the D and the 7th of the D. Third to 7th. Third to 7th. Neat. So I'm going to do a little line using those. I knew the arpeggio notes. I knew the strong notes ahead of time. I used my regular old scale I used all the time, but I just made sure over each chord that I featured those notes that were in the chord that may not be in the scale that I'm playing. Then I got creative and I thought about how can I link these notes together? It's a pretty neat way to play, and you get some really great sounds that you don't hear from a lot of players around. And if you want more of this, if you want to have some really cool blues chord tone targeting exercises, head over to the Academy, sign up. I've got part 2 of this lesson that will go through and get you really, really used to finding and visualizing where these notes are, along with the patterns that you already know. So there it is. That's the baby steps to get into chord tone soloing. The blues, which is usually for everything that we're doing here. So it's a great first step, and you'll start to understand things and then be able to take it to all the different styles of music. If you want more of this, sign up for my pre-order list for my chord tone soloing course. It's called Solos That Make Sense. I'm finishing it this week, and I'll be putting it all together for the public very soon. And you can jump on it now, lock it in for $27. And I'm going to call it That's a Wrap. Thanks for joining me today for the Play Guitar Podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe, or hit the button below to subscribe to the show. And if you have benefited from this podcast, please leave a favorable Apple Podcast review. That's the best way to make sure we get this very valuable content to more guitar players around the world. And if more help and structure and results and community in your guitar playing sound good to you, head over to Play Guitar Academy. That's where I'm at. We're having a lot of fun over there. You can join the world's most exciting and carefully planned guitar system. And together we will build your online home base for guitar. Thanks again. Don't stop here though. Go ahead and check out another one of these super helpful guitar tutorials. It's coming up right about now.